All right. So now you're saying he's arrested. Go ahead.
Well, now that everyone knows. So, sometime later, it wasn't until 10 years later when he was jailed. He was jailed, like Kai said, it's illegal. You can't just go around faking your own death. It's actually, yeah, it's pretty serious. So, he was jailed for 2 years for faking his own death in that boating accident. He was found guilty of murder. Otherwise, he would have got off scot free. So, the point is, he should have, if he hadn't done that, believe it or not, there wasn't any other evidence of where his wife is. Hello. So he could have actually got away with murder, but
He wasn't found guilty of murder at first. He was found guilty only of trying to fake his own death.
no, no,
And
no.
then
10 years later, after he was jailed, when he was jailed for 2 years for faking his own death, they found out much later after that that he was guilty. But what happened was um, he actually had to be retried. Remember that? You did read that part, right? Because this is many years
well,
later.
actually what
Many years
happened
later,
was
he was actually found guilty.
he was jailed um for faking his own death. Then they asked him
Right.
about his wife. They were asking him, where's your wife? So we've been looking for her. He wouldn't give it up. He kept saying that she left. But then when they went back and looked at, spoke to different people, because they're like, this is kind of getting fishy now. So they went back and spoke to different people, and they found out that he'd been lying all these years, and he's been
All
telling
those
different
years.
people different stories. Yes, she left. Yes, she went missing. Whatever. He's been telling different people different stories. So now that they find out he's been telling different stories, now it's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
So they try and get him to confess, whatever he did. What'd you do to her? Tell us. And he kept telling them that she left. Well, what happened was they started talking to the inmates, and one inmate said that he was searching for um,
Like,
things such as how to get rid of a body.
yeah, to commit a perfect
um,
murder. Yeah.
yes, how to commit a perfect murder. And what was it? There was something that was really. Oh, he told one of the inmates that he killed his wife. He definitely told one of the inmates that he killed his wife. So when that happened, they used that evidence against him. And the hardest part was, other than the the confession he made to an inmate, and the stories that don't match. Other than that, they have no evidence. There's no.
Kai, he was talking a whole lot because he also told his sister that she had confessed that she heard him admitting to killing his wife anyway. She actually did say that in her statement. But also while he was in prison, he gave it. Well, it wasn't a detailed confession, but he wrote a letter. I don't know if you heard about that. He wrote a letter from prison, like much later on, and they gave details of how he murdered her, and then how he strangled her and burned her body. That he buried the body in the front yard of their home, and they still never. At that point, they're just like, "Well, where is it? Where's the body?" Because he kept changing his story, like I was saying. But that's something else that he just kind of spilled out during the course of the time he was still in prison. But he wasn't guilty. He wasn't found guilty really right away. He was in prison for the fraud, for faking his own death and for insurance fraud. But then after that, when he was actually convicted without a body, and as a matter of fact, the first in the whole country of Britain that was actually can be convicted without a body. That's almost impossible. You know, there was no body of evidence, as they say. So at
Yeah.
that time, yeah. So then, and then it was way later, like at the time he was convicted of murder, it was 1996. That's the first time. Then it was squashed. I don't know if you saw that in 2003. That's way later. Then a
Yeah.
year later, this is so ridiculous. In 2004, okay, for those that are trying to keep up, they're getting their scratch pad like, what, Char? What's going on? Okay, he was found guilty a second time at a retrial. Now this is after his sister confessed at that point that she had heard him admitting to the killing of his late wife. How much do you have to sing like a bird and have no common sense? And not only that, but this is definitely an example of America's dumbest criminals. Because A, you could have got away with it, as bad as it is to say, had you not did that whole boat, debacle. It was unnecessary. Would you agree, Kai? And then you're telling your sister years later, she's like, you know what, the heck with it. I'm gonna let you guys really know what's happening. She didn't have a choice though. At this point, it was retried, so she had to tell what she had to tell the truth. And then to say that, at first you said, okay, he said she was buried in the yard, but then you find out that he strangled her and well, actually, no, that's what he said. He said, well, I strangled her, I burned her body, which by the way is heinous. It's just the worst thing anyone could ever do. And then I buried her in the front yard. Well, then it would not have been 9 years later that they're still trying to figure out where this woman's body is. If she was buried in the front yard, you know how easy that would be to find the body. How big is your yard? Is it Disneyland? You know, I mean, or Neverland. I should have said that. Was that what Michael Jackson's estate was called? Okay, I get it if it was that big.
Yeah, I think it was called
But
Neverland. I
or
think I believe so.
Neverland or something. So it's basically it was 12 years later, and the body to this day is still not found. However, he actually has the nerve. Did you hear what happened? Like how they did? I don't if we're ready for this now. I think how they did the whole sentencing thing. Like it wasn't very fair. I think they just kind of was like, okay, well, you already did a couple of years for fraud, so we're just not going to give you that much time now for murder. Why convict someone of murder if you're not going to treat it that way when they get a sentence? You know,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did. His sentence was not that heavy, I don't believe.
it was
Neither
life,
was
and it was
Anthony's. Anthony did go to jail,
yeah.
and I think Patricia didn't go to jail at all.
I think she went. If she did, it might have been 6 months. Basically, she got a slap on the hand. But he got life with a minimum of 16 years. And so, what does that mean? That means you do 16 years, and then
You have the
if you're not good,
possibility to ask to
the
for
possi
parole to get out, yeah. But that's the
right,
thing. He did almost like he asked to be released after the 16 years, but the daughter Sam
right.
did put in her review and she said he
She
did
did not
not
want
need to be
that.
released. Maybe if he showed some remorse by
Exactly.
saying what he did with their mother, where she is, whatever, if you at least showed some remorse, then I
Exactly.
would say maybe he needs to come out. But
We
she was
won't
saying
release
that
that.
being that he didn't show any remorse, he still haven't hasn't told us what happened to my mom, stuff like that. I don't
Not
think he should get out.
cooperative
And
or
she was
anything.
really scared, like that he would get out, but the judge denied his request and he still remains in jail. I think he tried to request getting out one more time and
Yeah,
again. Oh, they put him when
he
he
did.
when he requested one more time, they put him in a open population jail, I think it is. So you have more access to
Oh,
everything.
wow. You
So
could
he
deal with
did
all
go
the
into an open
people.
population jail
Mhm.
and then he requested again to be released, but the judge denied that request. So that's the latest that we've heard about it.
Yeah, in fact, he was 76 at that point. At that point, when he was looking for or up, well, hoping to be up for parole again, he's basically going to rot there. I mean, I don't even know. But my point is, Kai, what kind of sentence is that? How do you say, okay, you have life with the minimum? Anyone can do 16 years. I mean, that's ridiculous. I know they do the time served and all that, but that's just not fair. What he did to her was just terrible, you know? And so Kai, some last thoughts are that, and these are just my last thoughts, and I wanted to ask you what yours are. But the amount of anguish that he put his family through, particularly Sam and her son, was beyond. And so to this day, the fact that they still don't have the body, like Kai said, you could be cooperative. You know where you put the spot where her body is. I don't even know if that's even the method of how she died. But if it is, what could be worse than being, burned and beaten, or what did I just say? I was strangled. Yeah, what could be
You
worse than
said
that than to
strangled,
be
yeah.
strangled and burned? Strangled and burned. So what I'm saying is, even if he doesn't just give the true description, just tell us where she is. Let us give her a proper burial. In the United States, because cultures are all different, it's expected, it's appreciated, and it's wanted to have a proper send off, a proper homegoing, a proper burial. The fact of when you're in limbo and you don't know where someone's body is, it's just the worst for the family. There are plenty of families who the husband has a stroke, the wife has a heart attack over the years, waiting, hoping any day that person can walk in the house. Why? Because you haven't found the body. So there's a possibility they can come back. And to put anyone through that, but for Sam to have to keep reliving, especially when they retried more than once, then all the time, as Kai said, 9 years in between all of that, and then it's too much. So oh, Kai, what are your last thoughts on that? That was just kind of like what I
I
was thinking.
mean, I just think it is what it is what his personality is. He's an egomaniac and narcissist, and he doesn't
Hmm.
care about anybody but himself. I really believe, allegedly, he killed his wife. He wanted the insurance money from killing his wife. That's
There's your
probably
motive.
what him and Patricia were living off of. He didn't want to
Hmm.
share it with the daughter, which he just kicked his daughter out because he didn't want to share that money with his daughter. And then when they ran out of that insurance money 8.5 years later, he
Right.
tried. He had to figure out a way to get more money, and so he was like, "Well, it worked the first time. I killed my wife. I got the money. So let's pretend I'm dead,
It'll work.
and I'll
Yeah.
put you on the will and everything,
Your
and you
policy.
get my insurance money,
Hmm.
and then we'll just live out our lives together. Let's bring on this lawyer, even though it's random. Let's bring him on because he'll get a cut, and he'll be the witness that I fell overboard, so they don't
Exactly. He's
think
a
that
lawyer.
you killed me
Yeah.
or whatever. So he'll be
Hmm.
the witness that I fell overboard, and then we're just going to do it like that. But for some reason he didn't leave the country. Like, if you're going to plan your own death, don't you usually leave
At
the
least leave the
country?
country. And
Like,
they've had
okay.
access to a waterway. Get out of Britain. Get out of.
Yeah,
It's
but no, he
expensive.
stayed there. All he did was probably move just down the street, and I guess he figured
Right.
he'd
Like
live
a
the
look.
rest of his
Yeah.
life indoors or something.
Exactly.
I don't know what he was thinking. But he's an egomaniac, and with egomaniacs they can never be wrong, even though when they're completely wrong. And so, he doesn't care that it's hurting his daughter, that she doesn't know what happened to her mother. So it's you're never gonna find out. He's gonna keep trying to get out, based on technicality, this technicality there, this technicality here, and
Yeah.
that's
Red
where
tape.
it's going. That's what it's going to be, and that's it.
Wow, that's a lot said. That's a lot said. So, Kai, as we generally do at the end of of each episode, if anyone wants to follow, I don't know if you have your notes, but I did. We have a few, but for one, they can find this particular story on YouTube. When missing turns to murder. What do you have there as far as any link you can anything
Well,
you
what
can
I'm going to do, as I always do, is
get to?
you can go ahead and follow us on facebook.com/relationship crime, and
Mhm.
you'll see any updated information on this episode. I'll send you the initial story of this show, and you can go watch it for yourself, and you can see the victims and their recounting of what happened, because we just gave a generalization from our point of view, but you could definitely listen and see how they're acting, how they felt, exactly what was said and exactly what was done. But just go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/relationship crime, and those links will be there. And if there's any update as to this show, that will be posted on our Facebook page as well. Follow us on Instagram at Love Murder Podcast, or even go to our website if you just want one centralized location to listen to this and other episodes at www.murderandlove.com. Also, if you like this show and you want to say that you like this show, then go ahead and go to Apple Podcasts and give us 5 stars. You do have to say something when you do give us 5 stars, but I can give you what to say. Say, hey, I'm going to be tossed over a yacht if I don't write this 5 star review. Something like that. You can say, Char, stop giving away the lead before the story's over. You can give us 5 star and say that. Or you can say, Kai, please don't ever again try that British
The
accent.
English act. Oh my gosh.
So go to our Apple Podcast and give us 5 stars. You can find our Apple Podcast, the link for our Apple Podcast, at www.murderandlove.com. And again, if you want to be a producer at the end of this show, what we usually do is say who produced this show, who helped
Yeah,
us out, who was a subscriber to our Patreon, and that's what
big
we're gonna
part of it.
we're gonna start doing. But
Yeah.
if you want to be one of those people, you can go to patreon.com/love and murder and become a subscriber of $5 and above. Or if you just want to support us, then just donate whatever you like. And that was